This isn't your typical motorsports podcast. You're listening to Crush This, a monster truck podcast presented by High Octane Coffee and J Concepts. A show where we take you inside the minds of your favorite drivers, past and present, of the monster truck industry. And now, your hosts, Brad Shaw and Dan Chichagash. Buckle in. The show starts now.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome Tuesday. Once again, this is Crush This, a Monster Truck podcast. This is Cheech right here, Dan Chichagash. Brad supposed to be on too, but he's having a little bit of technical difficulties right now. He's trying to figure it out right now. The stuff, I guess, computers getting a little overheated and stuff like that. But also, Austin Tweedy was supposed to be on too, but he's having bad service down South United States area, Louisiana, Texas, somewhere around that nature. I just want to let you know, thank you to High Octane Coffee, Joey Sylvester, and everything that you have done. You've been with us since 2017 and helping out with giveaways and everything like that. J Concepts, same thing with Jason and Fred. Thank you so much for everything that you have done. Here's a shirt right here. JB Scale Graphics. Thank you, John. Also Chris from 6B. And also I gotta do this also. I apologize for this guy, and I'm right now going to hide that, edit, move on over right here, because this guy has donated the funds to help our podcast out, and he has really helped out because he just helped me out getting a stand, so a mic stand, and it's going to be pretty cool to help out with this, because now I want to have this microphone strapped to my face, because I feel like the guy from Home Improvement and the guy on the fence, and that and anyway, big whoop. That will be Justin's story. Sorry about that. And our guest today knows him pretty well. But if you have a chance, go on Amazon.com and get this called Making Tracks. It's a comic book about monster trucks, and this is the first edition. You learn about the drivers, you learn about the trucks, and you also watch some side-by-side monster truck racing. So get this book. It's $10 on Amazon. You may have shipping costs if you do, but I think on Prime it's free, and it's awesome. It's a good book, good for all ages. He will come out with a second one, but please go ahead, and if you're a monster truck fan, and you can get a monster truck book that's not John Cena. So you can get this copy, Making Tracks. Also, for you fans, I'm still going to go the idea, wow, that shaked, of a LMT Bad Habit monster truck with the help of J Concepts, JB Scale Graphics, plus Joey Sylvester and High Octane Coffee. I'll have them do a little video when they get this truck all ready to go. But if someone, I'm gonna try to figure out some questions for this giveaway or do something pretty cool. It's still up in the air, but I'm gonna get this truck all ready to go and stuff like that. So, once again, that's gonna be up in the air. If anyone comes up with any ideas, please shoot us a message on the Facebook, and also, I forget how to put commas. So the little tracker has Justin and back channel productions both in the same category, and I am right now on batting 0 today, folks. There we go. I fixed that up, and we'll continue on with this ticker, and go from there. Once again, also 6B Apparel. We have our crew shirts, $100 a pop. If you go to the Facebook main page, it's there right there. Message me and Brad, and we'll get that ordered for you. through 6B. Also, like I said, Back Channel Productions. Take a look at their roundup that's going on right now with the Renegade Monster Truck Tour. That's also pretty cool going on, and a lot of good action. Next week's guest is the driver of Terminal Velocity, and that will be Mr. John Zimmer Jr. More information will come about if we're just getting some final details. But as of right now, he is going to be our guest for next week until further notice. But that's pretty much it in the world today. I'll be in Ohio this weekend with the ride truck. I don't know exactly in Ohio, near Sandusky. So if anyone wants to take a look at that, for anyone that's in RCs, November 20th, me and the shop at Hall Brothers is going to be hosting an RC race. November 20th. That's a weekend after the Hall of Fame. Fans are more welcome to come by the Hall Brothers shop. They're going to have the place open. Take a look at, the tired up Raminators will be tired up. Merchandise for sale, fiberglass. So everything. And then we're going to have a RC track. If you guys want to watch some RC racing going on at the shop, we're going to have a bunch of the guys from Trigger King that's going to be there. And we're going to have some giveaways and stuff like that. So it's going to be pretty cool. So November 20th, and we're probably going to start that. More time, more detail. We'll be posting that. Also, July 29th, there's going to be a monster truck show at Champaign, Illinois. If anyone around the area wants to go and watch that, that's going to be happening too. Monster trucks will be announced soon. And also there's going to be like tough trucks and ugly truck contest, stuff like that. So that's going to be pretty cool. Why did someone give me a bad, ugly face? Who did that? Who gave me a bad face? Well, whatever. So, Facebook. Okay. Sorry, Greg Carlisle, for the angry face, but hopefully, don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be all right. The great Bob Marley said. So, take care. Anyway, so let's bring out my guest here. One of the funniest guys I have known. A great storyteller. Been in the business since Moses has been on this earth. And, okay, maybe not. What's up, Dad? And, but the cool thing is he's driving a truck that the history and the lineage of that truck has been going on forever. One of the coolest looking monster trucks back then, and still is today. And that's no other than the Torosaurus Rex. And that will be Mr. Jeff Bursey.
How's everybody doing?
Hey, Jeff, what's going on, bud?
It's just trying to figure out this high-tech stuff, Somebody had told me that today's cell phones are more technology. There's more technology in today's cell phone than it took to launch the Apollo rocket.
You'd be calling them crazy, huh?
No, well, you would think, but no.
You
with them headphones on, you look like a spaceman to me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So how you been? I've been seeing that you've been doing some these cool exhibition car crashes with the ghost truck and the old red truck going on there.
Yeah,
how's that going?
We had a little show in Goshen, Connecticut, and because of the whole COVID stuff, they had to break it up into 2 weekends, and it was because they were only allowed to have 50% capacity. But I'll tell you, and my son here, Jesse, he'll tell you that they pack the place. It didn't matter. People come out for monster trucks. They're just a genuine appeal to the world, and they're certainly a uniting force in the world. And we did a couple just small little exhibition shows, and we had a blast. And I turned the wheel over to my son Gage, and I told him, I says, you got one option. You're either going to put the front end of this truck in the air, or you're going to get a job at Bed Bath & Beyond. So, and if anybody heard the story, that's my greatest fear in life, is everything I do will fail and I'll have to work at Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah. Well, we were at a Ah, shoot. A show this weekend and it rained so bad. Travis Groth came over and asked me if I wanted to work at Walmart with him because everything was so bad. And I was like, yeah, sure, we can work at Walmart. I just want to be a greeter. And I can
That's
tell
all.
people to get their stuff. And that's it. I just want to be a
Yeah.
greeter. I don't care.
I
I'll
want
take half.
I want to see your receipt.
Have
Have they ever one time as one greeter ever looked at your receipt as you were leaving Walmart? Don't
except
ask me
for if
why.
I had electronic. There was one because I bought my PlayStation there and my television there, and they definitely tried to look for a receipt then.
Oh,
So,
that's
but
crazy.
not a car and milk though. I mean, whatever.
Well,
What's the importance? Car and
you,
milk or a television?
or a case of oil under the bottom of the cart that nobody saw and we forgot about.
Yeah, or something like that nature. But
Right.
how's your 2021 going right now? It seems like it looked like you put some up to date stuff on the old girl.
You know, if I told you what I did to it this year, it'd be crazy. We, if you look at the videos that we did for that little show in Goshen, I did one of the best wheelies I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only attribute it to one thing: the throttle return spring. All these years now, it's a what is 85-cent item. All
Mm-hmm.
these years, I get in that truck and I got to stand on the gas pedal because I've got like a snowplow coil spring for a pedal on my pedal, and I have two more snowplow coil springs on my injector hat. So you really got to work at it, right? So this year I lost those. I took it all apart and I lost them. I couldn't find them. So I just went down to the hardware store and I bought a couple lightweight little lawnmower springs or whatever, and I put them back on it. And it was a totally different truck to drive. I also put a new seat in it, and it's not, and I'm still holding out for, one of these days I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to buy a nice ISP or something like that. Something that it really conforms to me. But I bought a used seat, and I sit so much more comfortable in the truck for just out of dumb luck that it just was a totally different truck to drive and a way more fun experience. And I don't know if you can see, but behind me, well, you probably can't see through the windows. It's raining pretty hard here. I pulled it out of the trailer and I got it sitting in my backyard right outside my dining room window. It's pretty twisted up right now, so we got to get working on it.
So that chassis was brand new back in 2000, somewhere in the 2000s, right?
It was 2010 we built that truck.
Okay.
And it's funny because that's like I don't know, probably the fourth one I built on my own. And we've always kind of just kept everything different. That was one of the things that appealed to me all these years about monster trucks was the fact that you could build your own stuff and use your own design. And I never liked the cookie cutter stuff. I'm not saying it's bad by all means. It's the best stuff out there. But I just didn't want to, I wanted to always buck the trend. And it's funny because somebody was looking at my truck on Facebook or something, and they had said that, oh man, look at the stacked welds on that thing. Well, I never claimed to be a welder, but I could tell you I never chased a crack in that truck. I've never had frame cracking issues at all. And last week, of course, the last run I made, I ripped the shock mounts right off the thing. So that was a first. But
So how do you like the technology game of the shock game's always been for me cool to talk about because what makes you liking the coilover setup compared to buying night stalkers or a Patrick nitrogen set? I mean, yeah, they're nitrogen, but the coilover setup compare.
Well, they're definitely mine are overtime shocks.
Mm-hmm.
They are a coilover shock from overtime. I have them set up certainly a lot differently, and I don't run sway bars. And the reason I don't run sway bars is because I can run that. I can put that truck. I can hit stuff sideways with that truck, and it won't roll over. It's just you can literally beat the crap out of it and not get in any bad situations. And there's a double-edged sword to that because you're not, oh man, you don't have all the latest and greatest stuff, but you know what? I have more fun than anybody because I just go out there and I drive what I built, and just have a blast with it. My kids are the same way. My kids are coming up behind me now, and they're just loving the fact that
Mhm.
and when you have something like that, you just make a very small change, like a throttle return spring. It makes such a big difference. And we're still at the stage, and after almost 30 years of doing this, I'm still at the stage of figuring out the right nitrogen pressures to run, because it seems like every time I run this thing, it's like, man, well, all right, we went this way, let's go back a little bit or go up a little bit, and it just makes all the difference in the world. The smallest of changes. It's very hard to get it dialed in perfectly, but that's the challenge. That's an exciting part of owning and building and operating a truck.
Now you have the similar setup as Mentz does, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, and that's
Yeah.
a perfect example. He's still he's the perfect example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And his truck, the technology of his truck can go clear back to Monster Patrol and Taurus and all them, and he's still rocking the house, and it's still pretty cool to talk about, you know what I mean? And I always kind of like that, and I think it's pretty cool.
And it is cool. And my truck, you go to most shows, and my truck is the let's just say the low end of the totem pole. But I'm going to tell you right now, I've been in other trucks that are much more run of the mill than mine, and run those trucks the same way, and usually do really, really well in a good piece of equipment. Not saying that mine's not a good piece of equipment, because I built mine to be tough. I built it to be tough and dependable. And now we're at the stage where we figured this one out. We're building another truck now where we want to put it the tough, dependable, and performance. Put those three things together. And if you get those three things together, you've got the total package.
Yeah, another thing I liked about the truck that you have too is the lineage of the Torosaurus name. The history of that truck rocking Bloomsbury back in the early 90s to the SIR Monster Jam days to today, and that still that brings. I'm a history buff. I love the history. I love everything that happens in the monster truck world. But when you see, for me, Torosaurus Rex, I think of Jeff Bursey. You had that lineage and stuff like that on that truck. And I know there was a few years where you kind of did the Tomater and all that stuff, but you were never thinking about going somewhere else. You were always thinking about keeping that name Torosaurus Rex, correct?
That started way back when I bought the very first Towosaurus. Well, it wasn't the very first Towosaurus, but my very first Towosaurus. I bought it in 1995, and I thought to myself, I had this grand master plan. I'm gonna take that old body off. I'm gonna put a black Ford body on it, and I'm gonna call it Night Moves, because Ford had the night package. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Pink and purple really didn't go nowadays, but so I was going to do that, and then before I even took delivery on that truck, my phone was ringing off the hook. People wanting to book that truck for shows, just for the mere reason it was a tow truck. I've got nothing to do with the towing industry, and it's kind of a bum deal, because I've left a lot of money on the table not being part of the towing industry and having a monster tow truck. If I was more connected with a lot more of the the equipment manufacturers, the body makers, the towing world is a huge world. And if I was more connected and had this cool old tow truck, I'd be a lot better off than what I am today. But like I said, it's always looking forward, never look behind. So,
and also your different ideas of the paint jobs on the Torosaurus Rex. The first truck I remember seeing you in was a red and yellow version. It was red with yellow flames on it. But you had different schemes throughout the years. And I want to pick your brain on what you thought of doing stuff like that. For example, the latest version of your truck. What ideas did you have on making that, the theme of Torosaurus?
The way this truck is now is actually, there's a reason behind this truck being the color that it is. I had a very very, very precious young man. He was, I guess he was about 4 years old, and he loved my truck. He came down with cancer. I went to visit him in Boston Children's Hospital. We became friends with his mom and dad, and I went to visit him in Boston Children's Hospital. And when I spoke to him in Boston Children's Hospital, he was just about to beat his cancer at that time. And I told him, I says, listen, Mike, when you beat your cancer, you pick the colors that we're going to paint the truck. And I've got this cool dude I know down in just outside Hagerstown, Maryland, named Trey Myers. And he's going to lay whatever color you choose that truck to be. You tell me what you want it. I said, I'm not telling you any color. You could make that thing pink or whatever. Well, he gave me a list, and every single color on that list, he says, use these colors. I don't care what it looks like. Every single color on that list, the blue, the gray, the yellow, the pink, is a representation of a different form of cancer that is out there, cancer awareness. And I've never put it out there because, unfortunately, about a year after we painted it, the young man passed away. He was 5 years old and he had died. And but I've left that paint job on it for him. And next year is going to be my 30th year anniversary of being in the monster truck world, not with Towasaurus, but just being there. Because for probably 3 or 4 years before owning Towasaurus, I did have another truck that I built and really never did anything with it. It was mainly built out of fence posts that I crashed my four-wheeler through, but it was cool. And but I was in it, man, and I was in it to win it, right, ever since 1992. And I think next year we're going to put a really cool retro paint job on it, and just try to change it up a little bit, because it'll actually be 30 years for me and 35 for Towasaurus in general. I believe Towasaurus started in 87, so that'll be to 35 for the name Towasaurus.
That'd be cool. I think I hope you keep the paint job on the truck right now, because the story that you just told me, I mean, that's a lot of meaning, especially the meaning behind it, and maybe the colors. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, the colors are cool, and it escapes me right now what every color means. I mean, obviously pink is breast cancer awareness. I think the yellow is brain cancer or child or pediatric cancer. There's gray on it, which is this form of cancer, and the blue is a form of cancer as well. And we wanted it to be special for Michael, and he was a very special young man.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's go back. Maybe people may not know. Let's go with the story of how you got introduced to the Torosaurus Rex, and how did you purchase that truck?
Well, kind of a really weird turn of events. Now, I had been beating myself up over this fence post monster that I built, which coincidentally enough had an M715 body on it, like Saigon Shaker. So, hey, I had the first one. But I had big Rockwell planetaries on it, big loader tires. And there's like 2 pictures of this thing that even exist. And I built it in my mom and dad's driveway. And, they bought me a stick welder for my 10th birthday, I think. And I welded it all up, and half the time the stuff would break off. I actually got it to fire up and drive once in all the time I built it. But man, you know what? I went to 4 years of a Catholic all-girls high school, and I was a hero for them guys, man, right? But I was trying pretty hard. Then I knew that the business was progressing really fast. So I looked one day, I'm like, I'm tired of working on this old junk. It's full of snakes and bees and everything. So I decided I was going to build a tube chassis. So I started building a tube chassis. And I had my Rockwell axles underneath it and everything. And that was about 93 or so. And I started going to a lot of shows. In 94, I started going to a lot of shows. I met a lot of people. And I didn't put myself out there that I was... Basically, I talked the talk. Said, yeah, I got a monster truck, and I had like a little Polaroid picture of it, and I used to show everybody, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. When's it going to be done? You're going to come out here and run with us. Well, it wasn't about 95. And in early 1995, I was doing a fair, and Joey Fasano had a truck called the Warrior, which coincidentally enough was Bob Fisher's dual shackled leaf sprung liquidator. And Joey, I was talking to him at a fair, and he says, "Why do you keep messing with that junk?" He says, "Man, go buy Towasaurus." He says, "It's $25,000, turnkey, ready to go, tractor trailer, everything." And I'm like, 25,000. I says, "You think I can make that?" He says, "Yeah, you're going to make that with it." He says, "It's a dependable truck. It's a good truck. It's a certified chassis." At that time, it had a Smitty built roll cage in it, but that really wasn't smart certified. So I went, or the following weekend, I went camping, I think, and sat in a tent all weekend because it rained. And I'm like, man, how can I get some money to buy this thing? And well, then I had a family member that passed away, and I was at the funeral, and my uncle, he offered me, he says, I'll finance anybody if they're going to pay my interest. And I said, well, what about me? He said, now keep in mind, I was like 18 years old at the time. He says, yeah. He said, all right, I'll give it to you at 19% interest. He said, you got 5 years to pay me back. So I had borrowed the money. I had a huge interest rate, and I paid him back in 3.5. But I was in business at 18 years old, and I had a tractor trailer and a monster truck going across country. I had a CDL, but you're not really legal to drive over state lines until you're 21. But I did it anyway. And the only time I ever got stopped, my excuse was, "Well, I'm an owner operator, sir," and he let me go. It worked. So those are some exciting times. It's scary, I look back and I don't know how I did some of the things I did. Just as you get older and you have your own children, you're like, man, I don't know if I could even do some of that stuff again. We used to run down the road, and my pet peeve has always been blowing tires. I hate blowing tires. Back then, we blow a tire, we kept going. Nowadays, I blow a tire, I'll pay the $700 to get it changed on the side of the road, because I hate running with a blown tire. Because in your head, all you're seeing is the gator coming off and hitting a carload of kids or something behind you, and just bad things happening. And so now it's like, calm down a little bit on that kind of stuff. But
So there's a question that I was thinking myself just right now. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, one of the questions I wanted to know was, when you first started with monster trucking, basically, I mean, with the Torosaurus, who told you kind of the most important information that you had known? Something that I don't know I need to rephrase that question, but guidance, information, something that would stick to your head today in maybe helping someone else out in the industry.
the best advice I ever got in this entire industry, we always had a joke with Pat Suma. He told me, get ready to eat a lot of cheeseburgers. But that was good advice. We have had a lot of cheeseburgers over the years. But the best advice I ever got from anybody was from Calvin Carrington. He gave me the very, very, very important words that I tell everybody. Make sure you have something to fall back on. He says, you can do it for a living. Just make sure you have another source of money coming in to make a living if you're going to have a family. And, of course, you teams like you work for, that's certainly not the case, but those teams are few and far between. And, I'm very fortunate that, and we work hard. We go to a show leave on a Thursday night or a Friday, and we go to a show, drive all night to get somewhere, do the show, and that's not just running the truck. That's also announcing and building the track, and then turning around and driving all the way home and going to work on a Monday morning. That's a true challenge. Now, to try to balance that act out that's a bigger challenge, and that's kind of what drives me, is to rise to those levels. I love doing both. I have an excavating business. I love my excavating business, and I love my monster trucks. My boys are getting older now, so I think in the near future you'll see me doing more monster truck shows and maybe broadening out a little bit more to where I used to go. Because we used to go nationwide and then kind of settle down a little bit and say, well, we're going to regionalize ourselves. That was, of course, diesel being $4 a gallon at the time was played a factor in that. But we certainly love doing both of them. But I think you're going to start seeing more of us in the near, let's just say in the next few years, you'll see us out a lot more.
That I always thought that was always a pretty cool question to ask, especially in the beginning years of you running monster trucks. I didn't know if there was advice that someone told you when you first started that still got to your head by then. But Calvin was I never met the guy, but I heard good stories about him,
Well,
and
he was a great guy. And, people loved him or hated him. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about him, but he never told you any stories. He told you, he laid it on the line, told you how it was. And that's
mm,
something you take to the bank, especially once you get older, start having a family and stuff. It's important to be a straight shooter.
right on, right on. And so we got a couple. Let's see here. We got someone asking. Jake Lennon was asking. What shows do you guys have booked for the summer so far?
Well, let's see. We're going to East Waterford, Pennsylvania this weekend for Versus Monster Trucks. Um, I have a lot of Versus Monster Truck shows on my schedule this year. I have a lot of independent fairs throughout the state of New York. Um, oh gosh, where am I thinking? We have a bunch of stuff, mainly up in the Northeast for this summer. Um, like I said, a lot of fairs. You'll always see me messing around with the KSR guys. Do a lot of announcing for them. Do a lot of track building and announcing for Monster Truck Racing League. Actually, we got a couple shows booked with Outlaw Monster Truck Drags too, as for announcing. So we got a really good schedule coming up this year. Certainly, hopefully to make up for last year.
So, what got you into announcing? Was there a show one time where you got yourself into a situation where they needed someone to work the mic, and you're like, "I'll do it." But what
Well,
what got you into it?
a couple things. One, my truck broke a lot, and I needed to save a paycheck, and the but that's what I tell people. But it wasn't just that. Back in the day, back in the early days, well, my early days, the mid '90s, I would do so many shows, and it didn't matter. I worked for every promoter. I worked for little promoters, big promoters. Didn't matter who I worked for. If they had a show, I'd do it. What I found myself doing is driving nonstop. I mean, I put some miles on back then, and we didn't have good equipment. I had old white Road Boss or something, and I would announce on the CB going down the road to keep myself awake, and because we'd be driving through the night to get somewhere. And I remember actually the first time I announced was for Calvin. He says, because we were driving from one show to another somewhere overnight. And he said, man, he says, you can announce. He says, what the heck am I paying an announcer for? I'm like, well, you can pay me an extra couple bucks and I'll announce for you. And I did. And I started announcing and I just kind of took off from there, Unfortunately, announcing didn't allow me to bring the best monster truck I could to the market. And I've always told people I don't really like announcing. I do like announcing, but I tell people I don't because I'm a little bitter towards it because I'm like, people would hire me to announce over my truck, and I don't like that. I want them to hire my truck and then I'll come announce. Now I have that opportunity with my kids. Like, my boys are going to start driving, and that was the ultimate end goal for me was let them drive and I'll announce. But I also want to get in a truck when I want to. So it's just kind of a neat deal. It all works really well in my head. So
No, I do have a question by Mr. Jeff Lucky. He told me he can't wait to see you next weekend.
I know that
And
guy.
So do I. Yeah, a lot of people know him too, Jeff. He was talking about he said also ask Jeff about being the announcer and driving at the same time.
Yes, yes. You haven't lived until you did that. Yeah, you haven't lived until you built the track. You drove to the show, built the track, announced the show, drove two monster trucks at the show, and still kept announcing the show. That if you've done that, then you've lived in this business. And that was certainly something I've done, and I do a lot of it still. A lot of times people hire me to announce and drive I've, like I said, I'm lucky where I have my boys that are very, very into this stuff and can do it all, just like me. I always wanted to say I can do everything in this business that it takes, and I've done it all, and I've been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to be a club guy to a promoter. I've done it. I've done everything in between: track building, promotional stuff, announcing, event coordination, driving, fixing, driving other trucks. It's just I've done all that, and it's something that I said when I got into it, I really wanted to throw myself into it, and I have. I always do it. And somebody called me today to go and do a show, and I'd do every bit of it tomorrow if I could.
Another one he was asking, he was like, did you ever drive the Boston Big Shot?
Yes, yes, that was my truck. That truck was created by George Eisenhart, and and it's funny how that truck was created.
Story time.
Yeah, the story time. That was my truck that was created with me and George got together because we ran Todosaurus Rex the first year I worked for George Eisenhart. Second year, he said, I want to run you again, but I want you to change your name. I said, well, what do you want? He said, we need, because George's shows are all out in the Midwest. He says, nobody likes anybody from Boston. People from Boston are arrogant. And I says, well, are you telling me that I'm arrogant, George? He says, no. He says, you're just the opposite. But he said, I want you to be that guy. So I'm like, all right, I don't know how this is going to work. So we came up with the name and Boston Big Shot. And that's another thing. I'm notorious for never capitalizing on a lot of opportunities, or at least I was just a little too early with it because we had that truck in 2002, and in 2004, I think every single Boston sports team won their respective championship. And here I am, like, man, if I had the Boston Big Shot, I could have went to I could have went to Major League Baseball back then, but other people did that instead. And but it would have been cool to capitalize on that. But the whole theory behind the Boston Big Shot was for me to be an arrogant, pompous New Englander, which I'm not. I don't think. Maybe I am, but it's I just never wanted to be that guy. And it didn't work for me because people were like, "Well, you're such a nice guy for being from New England." I'm like, "Well, people from New England are nice. I mean, they're people like everybody else." But it worked. It was something that thing worked, and we just had fun. The name of the game for this business for me was always to make a little bit of money so we could keep going and just have fun, and love every part of it.
So so that's a little story time right there, folks. There's tons more coming, but that was from Jeff Lucky. I knew him from the jamborees and stuff like that, which he always took all the photos and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. But speaking about the verses, are you gonna be booked at West Lub?
I'm gonna be there. I don't think my truck is there, but I'm gonna be there. I made a deal with Steve this year because we actually did one show for him with my truck last year. Now, mind you, 20 some odd years, 25 years of running Todosaurus Rex. I think I've wasted one tire in all that time. It was Ocean City, Maryland, 1996. I cut a tire, and it was the day I met Rick Disharoon because he showed up in a service truck. He's like, "Oh man, I can help you." I'm like, "Oh boy, who's this guy?" And that was the only time I ever had a massive tire issue with a monster truck. Well, I went to Steve's show last year, and I think we changed 4 tires in one show. And I told him, I said, Steve, I got to regroup here, man. So I made a deal with him. He's like, well, I want you to be part of my shows. And I said, well, Steve, I want to be part of your shows. I got a lot of faith in Steve. I think Steve he's on to something. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think he's gonna make some waves. And I said, I want to be part of it. I definitely want to be part of it any way I can. He said, well, I want your truck, and I want you to announce. And I'm like, well, we'll run my truck when we can. But I said, how's this? I need to get my son Gage some seat time. Gage is going to be 16 years old next month. I said, I need to get him some seat time. I said, I'm not one to put the tires on out in the backyard and run it. I don't do that. I says, how about this? Let's agree to a price or agree to whatever we can. And I take my truck, and it's there as an extra truck, and we let Gage freestyle it. So he gets his feet wet in it. Because I says, we made some So we made some purchases, like about a helmet radio system, so it'll help him out. But father-son deal. I spent a lot of time yelling at him, but so we're going to be at a lot of his shows. We're going to be at every one, as far as I know, in my personal capacity. I think my truck will be at quite a few of those shows as well.
Oh, okay, that's cool. And I saw that live stream of that show, and I thought that was a pretty good show. A lot of local, not local, but regional talent.
Right.
And that regional talent can be good enough all over the United States. So it was pretty cool to watch, and I really hope this grows to more monster trucks. You know what I mean? That's just
well,
that's the story of it. More the merrier.
It's the name of the game. And I'll tell you, just as a footnote of that show, if you do it right and if it's announced right, nobody cares about new trucks. They love that old iron. And it's frustrating.
But here's a question I want to ask: is how on this chat right here we have everyone saying Mr. President. How the heck did you get that nickname, Mr. President?
Well, that goes back to 2006 when I was the president of the Monster Truck Racing Association, and people referred to me as Mr. President. Now, to my knowledge, since 95 or 96, there's only been 3 elected presidents of the MTRA: Tim Hall, Jeff Bursey, and George Eisenhart. And that's people just used to call me Mr. President. And, I approached it as a lot of people, and it frustrates me a little bit because people will say, well, you never took it seriously. You never took it seriously because you joke around a lot. Well, I don't think joking around doesn't mean you're taking it seriously. I take everything seriously. And when things go bad and when something happens in this industry, whether it's somebody broke down on the side of the road, usually I get a phone call, and I try to do my best to help anybody I can. If somebody calls me and they're out in Illinois or Iowa and they're like, oh man, I'm broke. Well, I know there's a truck stop off exit 274 and haven't been there in 20 years, but I bet it's still there because it was a good truck stop. So, but I always tried to help everybody out. And I always tried to lead by example, and I want everybody to have a good time.
Yeah, I kind of live kind of the same lifestyle. I take stuff seriously too, but the way of life is for me. I always have that saying: if you're not laughing, you're not living. And right. Sometimes you gotta laugh a little bit, and even though it's a serious moment and stuff is serious, but your personality has to be uptight, good. I mean, good, because people will come together on that. You know what I mean? And if you can help people out, because you don't know what other people are, and you don't know what they're going through. And if you can, change their, you just be yourself can help a lot of people out. And that's the way I believe in, and, wow, everything's blowing up. Look at this, Mr. President. Okay. Richie Kaiser says, when we get together, the new glam rock band, we need to get the new glam rock band together.
Yeah. That results from a text message the other day, because Richie's son Colton and my son Gage, and I've noticed there's a couple other guys out there that are of this next generation coming up, sons of fathers that are in this industry that are really rocking the mullets. And I mean, if they're going to rock a mullet, they better have some glam rock. They're going to be starting wearing spandex. And I'm going to tell you something: Colton and Gage wearing spandex is going to be some funny stuff.
Yeah. Let's see here. John Fitzgerald says, Jeff was helped me every show I've been to with trucks, direction, advice, etc. So that was a comment by John.
Yeah, John's a great guy. He's another guy we say he's up and coming. He's got a good piece of equipment. He's got a good team. He's got great kids. I mean, it's time for him to rock.
I think he's trying to rock the mullet too.
He's trying, but he's got like a I don't want to say it, but you look great, John. You look great.
Jake Lennon want to ask, How many times have you rolled over the Torosaurus Rex?
I don't think I've rolled over. I think Gage would know if he was here. It's probably only like 9 times. I'm not a guy that goes out there and rolls over a lot. Also, my truck's 12 and a half feet wide and doesn't have sway bars, so it's.
Sorry, I don't mean to yawn. No, yawn. I have yawn in every single episode. It's just air conditioning. We got this new advanced high-tech air conditioning thing that has a remote and everything like that, and then when I like hit it, it brings in some awesome cold air, and I just like, and I yawn on every single show. It's not nothing personal. I just yawn. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't take it personally.
I know. John did answer back, mullet and spandex. So guess he's gonna try to rock onto that band too, But
it's gonna be awesome.
But let's go with you've been a huge monster truck fan, and then the Hall of Fame has come around, and I think I was there the first year you went there, and with the new building in Butler, how do you think, or what would you tell people about the Hall of Fame?
Well, what I've always told people about the Hall of Fame right from the get-go, I thought it was a great idea since its inception. More importantly, I always felt our future is in our past. To grow this industry, to grow the monster truck industry, you're not going to be able to. Everybody's not going to go out and spend $300,000 and be able to go out and be a Monster Jam superstar and not know where they came from. And I hate the analogy of crisscrossing monster trucks with wrestling, but you ask any modern day wrestler, they know the history of professional wrestling. You ask, I'm not sure because I kind of stopped following a lot of other forms of motorsports just because I'm so wrapped up in monster trucks. I do follow a little bit of drag racing, and if you look at an NHRA broadcast, they're always picking out Big Daddy Don Garlits, Shirley Muldowney, Connie Coletta. And if you know these people, if you see that, it's like just the sheer presence and the magnitude of seeing somebody like Connie Coletta or anybody like that, it's amazing. And when you go to the Hall of Fame, we're at the Hall of Fame this year, and to sit there and the people that would come up to you and say hi, and just people I've met over the years that we ran with way back when, Gary Schramm, Jerry Richmond, these guys are just incredible. That they didn't become household names, but boy, they had a big presence in the world of monster trucks, and it's just so neat to be shoulder to shoulder with these guys and to see their reaction when they see a brand new truck come out, or a Bigfoot or somebody like that. When you see them come out, and then of course Jim Kramer, words, there's not enough words in the English language to describe what it's like to have a conversation with Jim Kramer regarding the history of monster trucks. You just can't put it into, there's not enough hours in a day, and it's just such a cool thing. And the Hall of Fame is definitely, I think, it's just very, very small window. Looking in that small window of our past is actually the big window of our future. And I've said for a long time we might need to have classes for monster trucks. Mega trucks, 48-inch tire trucks. I don't think that's the way that I wouldn't. I'm not talking about that when I say that. I'm talking about if you've got your trucks like mine, which are, let's say, pro modified monster trucks, and then you got a Raminator, which is an unlimited modified monster truck. You got two different things, and you can make a bigger show out of the stuff. And I think you could even, of course, Jeffrey Fielding, Alan Fenstermaker, them guys run leaf sprung trucks harder than leaf sprung trucks used to run, I think, sometimes. And I think that's a whole new avenue to pursue. The versatility of any monster truck is incredible, from promotional displays, the stuff you can do with them. We've done strongmen competitions, float them across the lake. There's so much you can do with these trucks, and they're timeless. The old trucks become timeless, and you could take those old school trucks and take them out every single weekend if you wanted to. And the Hall of Fame showcases every bit of that.
Now, that also got you in the kick because you're also a huge historian, and you have some nice iron somewhere in the Jeff Bursey property or stuff like that. I know about the All-American, but I think you also have the little barefoot, right? And
No, actually, I don't anymore.
oh,
I did
okay.
have it, and
What
and
name?
I
Give me some names of stuff that you have previously owned or have got your hands on. Yeah,
well,
now going back in the archives here. Let's,
you know, well, we had a little barefoot.
mm-hmm.
We had a little barefoot, but at the time, had I known the Hall of Fame was going to be as popular as it is, and I was going to get the people that have called looking for that little barefoot truck, I had sold it to a guy, and it was basically, when I got it, it wasn't hardly a little barefoot. It was Witch Doctor, and it was stretched from the time it was little barefoot. They made a longer wheelbase.
Mm-hmm.
It had 5 tons, and it didn't have the vertical drive line or the it
The
didn't
Corvette.
have the Corvette drive line. It had the biggest brake rotors I've ever seen in my life on it. They were pretty awesome looking. It had Rockwell, I think, PS 115 planetaries. Had a chain drive transfer case. We still got the roll cage up back. I did manage to salvage the roll cage off of it, which was Witch Doctor. Now, I don't think that roll cage didn't come from anything Fred had. The body I traded off to a guy, and I don't really
hold
know
on
whatever
one second,
happened to that.
Jeff. When you purchased, Barry Packer completely owned that truck. Fred had nothing to do with it, correct?
Right, but I didn't purchase it from Barry Packard. Rick Schmidt owned it. Rick Schmidt, I think, purchased it from Barry Packard. And then it ended up down in Florida. I think Joey Stothis had it. And then it ended up Bob Kastner in New Jersey had it. And I traded Pat Suma a set of planetaries, Clark planetaries, for a rolling little barefoot. Didn't have motor in it or nothing. It was pretty beat up, and we thought, let's make a ride truck out of it or something. And it just got too much for me because it's, at that time especially, I was really working by myself and didn't have a whole lot of friends because I was gone a lot. I spent a lot of time on the road, and that truck it was a cool truck, but had I known that the Hall of Fame was going to be as big as it was, I would have never let that thing go. Then, of course, we ended up getting All-American. We do have the All-American. And I'll tell you a funny story about the All-American. I was lucky enough after I did do a kind of a, am I allowed to say like complaint session? Let's say I'll keep it clean. And I did put a Facebook post up a few months back about, me helping people and them not returning the favor and stuff. And ironically enough, I finally got the call at about 2:00 on a Sunday morning to go down to the Hot Wheels drive-through experience in Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Mass. And I was told, bring everything you got. So we brought everything we had. We brought, my truck, brought old red truck, and I brought the All-American down there. Now, as the All-American was down there, didn't have motor in it. It's kind of tacked together and just sitting down there, don't have a name or a paint job on it, really. A gentleman by the name of Mike McFarland walked up to me. Now, a lot of old school Monster Jam guys will know Mike McFarland, T-Bone. He actually put together probably 100% of all the television episodes of every Monster Jam there ever was. And T-Bone had said to me, he says, is that the All-American? I says, yeah. He says, that's the reason I built a monster truck, because Mike had a 48-inch tired step-side truck. Yeah, Mike was out of, I think, Flagstaff, Arizona, or Tucson, Arizona. And he says that was the reason he got into the monster truck world, was because of that truck. And here he is 40 years later looking right at it. That was a pretty cool thing. And we pulled it off that display, and we're we're getting ready to start working on that again. It's getting down to the nitty gritty with that. We don't have a whole lot of work left to do. And just when you have the money, you don't have the time. When you have the time, you don't have the money. So
Yeah. Autumn said still waiting for an apology.
I don't know what she's talking about.
I don't know either. But how about the other history of the other two All-Americans, the little one and Eagle? Whatever happened to those two?
Eagle, well, a little All-American, Brian Rao has it.
Okay.
I think Brian's out of Ohio. He's got it. And that became Raven, of course. And then the Eagle, as far as I know, somehow Andy Hoffman had it, but I think it was Wooten Brothers. And I don't know how much of the original Eagle is left. I think the ladder bars, maybe the axles, there's a lot of parts. I think maybe the frame was changed. The cool thing that we found out about the All-American recently, and I figured it out before I was told. I was out in the backyard, and I had the All-American sitting out in my backyard. And I was just out messing around with it, and I looked, and I'm like, there's two sets of motor mounts in it. Now, originally, that truck had a big block Chevy in it. Spiker's trucks always had a big block Chevy. Well, I'm looking, I'm like, somebody went and put Ford motor mounts in it. And I got to shut my dog up. Jesse, put him outside. And it's all right, put him outside. And somebody put Ford motor mounts in it. But they put the Ford motor mounts in, and I'm like, man, if they actually put a motor in this thing, a Ford motor, that motor would have been sitting through the hood, like up to the valve covers. Now, I want you to think, now that'd be a good trivia question. Why would they have done that? What truck had an engine sticking through the hood up to the valve covers?
Duraliner Giant.
Guess what the first Duraliner Giant was going to be? It was going to be the All-American.
Oh, really?
And Kurt Dabney actually confirmed that for me in a private message, because I asked him, like, Kurt, I know nothing about it, and Spikers really don't want to listen, don't want to talk about it. I mean, there are some issues with the history of that truck, and I can respect that, but there's just so much of a mystery to it, and every time you touch that truck, it tells a story. It tells a totally different story than what you thought. It's just a cool old truck, and I just can't say enough for it. And you actually have to.
So when Depney was talking to you about the motor mounts of it, that truck didn't become the Duraliner Giant, right? Did they build something else?
Because the business changed so fast that they built the other Duraliner Giant truck, the original one, and everything just changed so fast. And they built a straight frame truck and rather than the stock frame, and just a neat deal. Now, at the Hall of Fame, and we ask as many questions to people we can. Ironically enough, the 73-inch tires on that truck on All-American were the 73s on Gary Wiggins' Mopar Magic. And I thought that was neat, because Mopar Magic was the first truck I saw roll over ever in
Foxborough, right?
June 24th, 1989. TNT show. I was standing right there. So,
if anyone can guess what truck he was versing when he rolled over, I will give you Retro Monster Truck Review decal.
YouTube, I think YouTube just locked up.
Actually, that's Mike Newton. Mike, answer your question so you can get decal back. Because if not, it's gonna go away. Answer the question.
Mike wasn't even a tickle in 1989.
Yeah. So Jeff Bursey saw his first rollover in 1989 in Foxborough. What truck was Mopar? The Mopar Magic was the truck that rolled over. What truck was he facing against?
80. What year?
1989. Foxborough, Massachusetts. What truck was Gary Wiggins in Mopar Magic was facing when he rolled over?
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
No.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Just
I didn't even know.
throw a common name. Regular name.
Bigfoot.
No.
Snakebite.
No.
Executioner.
No.
I don't know.
You're naming one of the most popular trucks ever.
80
The most popular truck ever.
Bigfoot.
No. Yep, there we go. Congratulations. You just answered right. You got your decal. Yay!
Jeff Bursey was the first driver I ever saw break.
Oh, man.
I told him this before. The best thing Bursey ever told me, I was working for his, I was helping him out with his construction company. He was in the loader. He looked at me. He was like, Mike, in my day, if you rolled over, you sucked. And I'm like, thanks, Bursey. Miss you, man. Hope all is well.
Love you, Mikey. Good seeing you.
He's my roommate, so he's
Well.
doing all right right now. Hall Brothers. He hasn't got fired yet, so. But yeah, man, I you talking about that story? That's so cool. You know the history of like, for instance, everyone knows about the original Gravedigger ran the Quadzilla tires and wheels that I guess Dapney's had outside, and he needed some tires and stuff like that, and it's just a crazy a story about that stuff. And when you were younger watching the monster trucks and stuff, would you later on find out that you'd be owning one of those historical trucks?
I knew I never thought I'd own a historical truck, but because we didn't know history. We didn't know there'd ever be a history. We didn't know back then. You think it's just always going to be around. All American just going to evolve into some wild stuff, and things happen and it didn't, or whatever. And so I never thought I'd own any of that history. There's history out there that I want to own still. Whether that'll ever happen, I don't know. Like, another truck that I would just love to own would be Godzilla. I just when I was a kid, that thing was everywhere.
Where's that
New
truck
England
now?
trucks. As far as I know, last I knew it was in Attleboro, Massachusetts, and it's sitting in the trailer, and it's called Mass Destruction, and it's just something that needs the trucks like that need to be brought back for the museum, if for nothing else, or even if the museum, if they couldn't get to the museum, they need to have mentions in a museum and be recognized for the first group of trucks that were out there, just the biggest, the tallest, the baddest trucks that were out there. That thing with a 871 Detroit diesel was a pretty wicked truck, if you ask me. But one of the guys
one of the cleanest looking monster trucks I ever seen.
Incredible.
I would put him one in the ranks with Neil Wilson's Virginia Giant, that Godzilla truck. In the paint scheme, I never seen in person. I seen pictures of it, but the small details that Godzilla truck had, that if you actually had to take a look at it, was pretty awesome.
One time I went to a car show and it had the 84-inch tires on it, and that was crazy. That was awesome to see that truck with the 84-inch tires, which was just gigantic. And then, of course, you think it's gigantic till you see Bigfoot 5, and that just blows them all out of the water. I don't care what anybody says. Till this day, that's one of the highlights of my life, is seeing Bigfoot 5. But moving ahead a little bit out of all that stuff, another truck that I have in my shop right now, which I've had for like 6 months in my shop. It doesn't belong to me, but it's a truck we're putting together for the guy that owns it. We have one of the Twister trucks in our shop right now. We have, and it's another one. I'm trying to find out the lineage of it, trying to figure out what's what, where it came from. Was it built originally as Flashback? Because it was called Flashback, and it's a short bed Ford with.
Yeah, we had that talk because there's minor tweaks between 1 and 2.
Right.
Number 3 is the long one with the motor in the back,
right? Which
but
had ZFs on it.
Right. But 1 and 2, though, there were some minor changes. Like, I think 1 had the three shocks, and then 2 had the 2. So kind of like that type. They're spaced out, but they're 2 and 2.
Right.
Now there's a truck that sorry, Jeff. Sorry, my bad. Mike Hedman was talking about, that's up near Indiana and Illinois, that has this, that I think my discovery, or my findings is I thought that that's number 2, and I think you have number 1.
Well, if that's the case, now that truck that Mike Hedman's talking about is called Godmother's, and I've seen that truck before, and that truck it's a really cool truck, and I do believe that is number 2 because the shocks are mounted differently. The shocks on the one we have are straight up and down, where the number 2 they're fanned out. The 3 shocks that are fanned out. Now,
Yeah,
if
my
that's the
bad.
case, what I want to find out is did they take number 1 and sell it off and make it flashback or whatever they did to it, or Northern Storm or whatever. If it is number 1, is the main frame of this truck the movie truck? Have you ever seen the movie Twister's Revenge? Is this the movie truck? That's what I want to find out. It's just be so cool if it is.
Yeah.
Because
the way I saw the pictures of flashback, it looks more. They had the body of a more of a updated or more like a 92 Ford pickup truck, while Mr. Twister was more in the late 80s. I mean, Ford truck.
Well, Mr. Twister was the 79 body style. And the flashback was the 87, which is the brick nose body style. And the brick nose, but I don't know. It just could have been that they had changed it. Because back then things were, maybe they rolled it over or something, or something happened, could have fallen off a trailer or something stupid like that, and they put a newer body on it. I know that in the movie it had 2.5 tons on it. This truck that's in our shop has really baby little petty bones in it, and they're not the pie pan petty bones. They're just a smaller petty bone planetary axle. And we're putting it together for the guy that owns it. He wants it for just a cool old monster truck. He's probably ain't going to do much with it, but he'll do some parades and stuff. And it's just a really cool old truck.
Is he going to rename it Mr. Twister, or what's his game plan?
No, he owns a company called Tri-State Generator, and he was going to call it the Tri-State Titan. That's what he was thinking about, at least. Whether that'll still happen or not, I don't know. Speaking of Titan, that's a truck that if you've ever seen the 73 Chevy Blazer, we actually have that one too. It was owned by a guy named John Murch out of Quincy, Massachusetts, and it was a trailer queen to the bone. I mean, that thing was a beautiful truck. A buddy of mine bought it with the intent of we cut the subframe out. It was a stock Chevy Blazer frame welded to a subframe. We cut the subframe out, stretched it, put a hearse body on it, which is still kind of under construction, and the Blazer was going to go back to the guy that originally had it. He wanted to put it back as a street truck. Well, it's been sitting down at my buddy's house for quite a while. And Gage, my son, told him, he says, well, how much do you want for it? And the guy put a price tag on it. And Gage says, I got that much money. I want to buy it. So we're waiting for the guy to get back to us so we can go down and pick that up, which that'll be another cool piece of history.
So let everyone know, we're going to go back a little bit here, is how did you get your hands on the All-American?
Found it in a junkyard. He was down in New Jersey doing a show, and guy come up to us at a pit party. He says, I got a monster truck. Oh, yeah? Where is it? What's in my junkyard? He says, I don't know what the name of it was, but he says, it's a monster truck. I said, well, give me your address. I want to go see it. So the next morning, we woke up. We drove to this guy's junkyard, and he says, there it is right there. And it didn't have a body on it. The body was gone, but the frame down was all sitting there. No tires. They had transport tires. We looked at it, and I said, yep, there it is right there. It says Lakeland, Florida, right on the differential. I said, that was the All-American. And I says, how much you want for it? He said, I don't know. What do you give me for it? I said, well, scrap ain't worth nothing. I'll give you $1,000 for it. So I gave him $1,000 for it, and went down a few weeks later and picked it up and had had it ever since.
Man, so how did you know exactly that was the All-American? Even said Lakeland, Florida on it, but was there stories that you heard about the history of the truck?
I had no idea how it ended up in New Jersey. Had no idea. I didn't know whatever happened to that truck. Last time I heard, it was sitting in a field down in Florida, and that was 30 years ago. And the other distinguishing factor that I knew it was the All Americans. They had the aluminum bullet tanks on each side of it, the saddle tanks, and that's when I knew that's the All American.
Man, that's. Have you found any more like any with you getting the chassis? Were you hearing stories, not stories, but other people telling you, okay, this is what the truck had, this is what the truck needs, stuff like that, like to make it look like, your process of making the truck into the All American?
Big part of the problem we're finding with that is it did have a checkered history, and I've asked countless people for pictures of it. Send me pictures. If you've got pictures of that truck, send them to me so we can accurately rebuild that truck to what it was. I mean, just and it's funny because one of the most clear pictures I've seen of that truck, because there's very, very few pictures of that truck in existence. And I don't understand why. It's just, of course, it wasn't a time where people had camera phones when that truck was out. But one of the most clear pictures somebody sent me out of a magazine was a picture of the body mounts under the cab mounts. And we counted, there was 12 hockey pucks piled up on top of each other. So when I mounted the cab on it, we put 12 hockey pucks underneath it. So it's, that was pretty common practice in the 80s. I had a pickup truck with a hockey puck body lift, so.
Right, but the body, you found the right type of body for that truck, right?
Yeah,
it was
we
the
put
84, right?
Yeah, I put an 84 body on it. The bed on it is, I think we got an 87 bed, but the way that the fender flares are cut out, the only other difference would be, I think, the tail lights, and I think that early 80s tail lights will still bolt into that bed without too much horsing around.
Now, what I know it was a Chevy, but do you know exactly the motor that truck was running?
It had a bit. It was supposedly a 488-inch Chevy. I believe it was 488 cubic inch Chevy, but there's no real way to tell. It had 2 4-barrel carburetors on it, and a big tall intake on it and stuff, and it's just, like I said, it's just such a cool old truck. I really wish we could find a lot more pictures of it and get it.
Now it ran the standard 5 tons, right?
Straight 5 tons, yep. No planetaries. Straight 5 tons with drum brakes. Now, I've only ever seen one picture of it, and I want to say it was from the 85 or 86 Indy Jamboree, where it had one disc brake on the front. Didn't have it in the back. It has drum brakes. The brake lines were all still plumbed right into the frame with it. And I only ever found one picture with a brake rotor mounted to the pinion. And I want to say it was 85 or 86 we found that picture. I do have a magazine from early 1984 with the Eagle in it. Now, if that was from early 1984, that means All American was built before it, because of the way it's worded in the magazine. It says that the Eagle was built second.
Now,
so,
how similar was the Eagle than All American? Obviously, we know the little All American was a smaller truck, but wasn't the Eagle and All American kind of the same size? And was there any extreme difference between the two?
They were almost identical from what I can tell. I haven't done a whole lot of research on the Eagle, but there was a lot. The ladder bars were different. There were some different things about it. The sunroof, one had a sunroof, one didn't. I'd like to find interior shots of them, of both of them. I think I have some of the Eagle, but I don't have any of All American. I've been kind of collecting shifters over the last year, and just kind of go to yard sale and see a B&M slap shifter, and I'm like, hey, I bet you All American had one of those.
Now, is the All American going to have a dump bed too?
Oh yeah. We've already built that's another thing. We can't find clear enough pictures on the way they built their subframe and their hinging mechanism. It still has the mount in the frame for the dump piston, the dump cylinder. It had a really cool hydraulic setup, which would have been for everything from the rear steer to the dump bed to the tilt nose, and it all worked off of one pump. And I just got to, it's something I've got to sit down
So
and figure out how to make it all work.
Had a tilt bed, and the hood went
And a
like how
tilt nose.
Bigfoot is, right? Like,
Yes.
Okay. All right, man. It's just crazy to think about. I mean, you have that truck, but you're still learning more and more about that truck every single time you're building it.
Every time you look at the frame of that truck, it tells a different story. And it just, there's pieces that were welded on, stuck on, and just, it's somehow one of the traction bars that it had was welded as a transmission mount. And it's just crazy, that truck, man. It's so much fun.
Now, have you been searching for the tires? Obviously, probably they're gone now, right? Or
somebody called me a couple of years ago, sent me a Facebook message. They didn't call me, sent me a Facebook message saying, I have the original tires to the All-American. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Come get them. And he didn't give me any other information. So,
you know, that I'm gonna have speaking about Columbus, I'm gonna have Travis Howard on too. So I'm gonna hear the stories of how he got the excite their truck, and that's a pretty cool story to hear. Now Mr. Patrick has it, Dan Patrick has it, but
you need to talk to Travis Howard, and you need to ask Travis Howard. You need to just ask him about pulling a semi with a Jeep, and it to like 37 miles north of Mansfield, Ohio, to Mansfield, Ohio, because we did that. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna have him on. That'd be great. But Jeff, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna have you on more. It's just cool to hear about the history of the monster trucks and how you love it so much. You know, I mean, it's great to hear stories from it, and always great to hear from you, man. It's always great to talk to you. Remember that one time?
You remember Bercy, me and P. Schaefer? You remember that one time? Jesse, enough.
You remember?
You remember P. Schaefer?
You remember?
That's a guy you need to have on your podcast, is Paul Schaefer.
I've been trying to. I even messaged his son.
Yep.
Just to get him on.
Whatever it takes, man.
Right. But is there any social media people can follow you at?
I'm on Facebook. I have Instagram, but it's too confusing for me. But I'm on Facebook. They can follow me, talk to me, ask me questions, tell me they hate me, love me, anything they want to do.
All right.
I always get back to them.
Right on.
But I remember just a few years ago I was at a show with Dan Runty, and it was me and Dan and a bunch of newer guys that were at the show with us, and I use newer guys loosely because they're all good guys. But I remember looking at Dan and I says, Dan, I says, you know what? Yeah, I says, you believe in this stuff still, don't you? And he said, yeah, I do. I says, you know what it's like to believe in it. I always tell my kids, I says, you'll never know the feeling of driving into the Pontiac Silverdome in front of 65,000 people screaming, and knowing that history that had happened in the Silverdome, being the first place ever to see a public car crush. You'll just never know it. And that's the true honor that some of us guys been around for a while have been through. And that's where the past is our future.
I gotcha. Yeah. Which I cherish the past, because where you gotta know where you came from to know where you're at now. If you ignore the past, then history will repeat itself. It is what it is. But once again, Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheech.
We'll have you back on. You could be a regular. You can be the Jeff Bersey show, the Bersey Hour.
Could be his spinoff, man. Be like Piper's Pit.
Yeah, be the Bersey Hour.
Yep. Awesome, man.
But hey, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being on and watching and listening. This will be on iTunes and Spotify. Like I said, next week's gonna be John Zimmer Jr. I want to thank High Octane Coffee, J Concepts, Justin Story, Back Channel Productions, 6B Apparel, and JB Scale Graphics. Once again, Brad will be with me on next week. And like he always says, keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down. Good night. Peace.
Thank you.